I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
That's the Majority Leader in the United States Senate, the Lizard King, Chuck Schumer, threatening with harm 3 different Supreme Court justices because Chuck Schumer is a left-wing criminal. What is he? He's a Nazi. But he's Jewish, Chris. Yeah, he's a Jewish Nazi. Get over it. They got a bunch of them now. The Supreme Court has ruled. That was Schumer. That was a while back, threatening the Supreme Court. He went over and a mob of violent, mentally ill Democrats with gender dysphoria were outside the court cheering him on. You will reap the whirlwind. You won't know what hit you. You will pay the price. That is, what is he, like the number 3 guy in the Democrat Party in the country, threatening violence against Supreme Court justices. He obviously should have been arrested, and he should probably still be in jail, along with that lunatic that showed up outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house with a gun, a handgun, multiple loaded magazines, burglary tools, kidnapping tools. The Democrat Party is a violent party because they're the left. They're not liberals. They're the left. Now, let me get to the breaking news of the moment. In a much anticipated ruling by the Supreme Court, which we learned over the weekend was going to be taking place this morning, and it now has taken place as expected at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Supreme Court rules Trump cannot be kicked off Colorado ballot. The decision swiftly ended the legal fight, not swiftly enough, over whether Trump could be barred by left-wing Democrat radicals who burn and loot and overturn police cars and shoot people and carjack people. You know, Democrats. The fentanyl dealers. You think there are a lot of Republican fentanyl dealers in America? Probably not many. The decision swiftly ended the legal fight over whether Trump could be barred from the Colorado primary ballot tomorrow, Super Tuesday, based on the Constitution's 14th Amendment. NBC fake news is typing. So the Supreme Court Monday overturned a Colorado court ruling that said former President Donald Trump was ineligible to run for office again because of his actions leading up to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. How about the events leading up to the attack on the White House that went on for 3 days that injured 180 police officers, where they torched the church of the presidents? And, you know, Kamala Harris was raising money for bail to get criminals back on the street to loot and burn again, bringing a swift end to a case with huge implications for the 2020 election. The court reversed the Colorado Supreme Court all-Democrat hacks, which determined that Trump could not serve again as president under a provision of the Constitution's 14th Amendment. The decision comes just a day before the Colorado primary. In addition to ensuring that Trump remains on the ballot in Colorado, the decision is likely to affect similar cases by left-wing radical extremists, terrorists who burn and loot and carjack that have arisen. So far, only 2 other states, Maine and Illinois, have followed Colorado's path. Like the Colorado ruling, both those decisions were put on hold. They're total commies. I think that Republican states, and Republicans should have done it right away, remove Biden from various ballots across the country just to respond in kind to the radical left wing of American politics, which is the mainstream of the Democrat Party. I am telling you. So the Supreme Court decision removes one avenue to holding Trump accountable. This is NBC News. No, it removes one avenue that the radical left has attempted illegally in the United States to keep their opponent off the ballot, which we see in African beephole countries, going on right now in Senegal, where they just pulled the primary opponent off of the ballot. And then the Democrats said, hey, we're just like an African beephole country. We should do the same thing here. Vlad the Impaler Putin, of course, removed his primary competition, and then he killed Alexei Navalny because that's what the left does. Also in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro removed his primary opponent from the presidential ballot for their phony, corrupt election. And the Democrats are no better than and no different than Nicolas Maduro. They're an awful lot like Vlad the Impaler Putin and whoever it is that's presiding over the beep hole in Senegal. But never mind that. So the Supreme Court decision removes one avenue to holding Trump accountable for his role in challenging the 2020 election results. Shall we go to all the audio of Hillary Clinton saying that her election was stolen in 2016? Or the DNC chair, Terry McAuliffe, saying that the 2020 election was stolen, that the 2000 election was stolen, and the 2004 election was stolen, because Terry McAuliffe, the now former governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the Democratic National Committee chair for many years, he said that the 2000 election was stolen. He still says that the 2000 election was stolen. He still says the 2004 election was stolen, George W. Bush and George W. Bush. Hillary Clinton said that the 2016 election was stolen from her by Donald Trump, and somehow no leg shackles for them. Well, other than recreationally, of course, but that's another thing altogether. Yeah, so that's your Democrat Party. ... And the Supreme Court. Now, what is the decision? I'm looking to see whether it was unanimous or what the count was. It was unanimous. Okay, all right, it was unanimous because that was not in the original write-through. You'd think that would be in the lead sentence. If your NBC fake news corrupt as they are, that's the lead sentence, and they're the first story that we had pop up with the story. But they, of course, they're trying to whiz on the parade because they're Democrat Party hacks. The fakes at NBC News, they're a bunch of Democrats, and it is now popping a 9-0 ruling. Even Sonia Sotomayor, who is going to play Jake LaMotta in the upcoming remake of Raging Bull, and even Sonia Sotomayor said, well, this is completely illegal, and all the Democrats on the Colorado Supreme Court, and by extension, the Democrats in the state of Maine, and by extension, the Democrats in the state of Illinois, that have tried the same trick. They've all been brushed back, and now, you see, the Democrat Party is likely to riot and burn police cars and attack what do they usually attack? Police stations and police cars and churches. They love attacking churches. They've always attacked a lot of churches, the Democrats. They blew up that church and killed the little girls, the Democrats did. That's another Democrat deed. But they get to rewrite everything because, there it is. A 9-0 ruling. Michael Piercy reading on his computer. My computer still doesn't have the 9-0 ruling. But the New York Fake Times, Trump prevails in Supreme Court challenge to his eligibility. The Supreme Court ruled Monday that President Donald J. Trump should remain on Colorado's primary ballot, rejecting a challenge to his eligibility for another term that could have upended his presidential race by taking him off ballots around the nation run by radical left-wingers who really want a civil war again. The Democrat Party started the first Civil War, which is what we call it now, the first Civil War. Just amazing stuff. You're a Democrat Party. Donald Trump is celebrating the Supreme Court's decision, writing on his social media platform, Truth Social, "Big win for America," in all caps with 3 exclamation marks. Honestly. But the Democrats, by hook or by crook, by any means necessary, they are not on our side. I am telling you. The Supreme Court ruled Monday President Donald Trump remain on the Colorado ballot. That is big stuff. From the New York Times, the ruling was unanimous. And that's not what they wanted to publish, of course. But this is about the Democrat Party losing its way, which they did long ago. They are an un-American party, an anti-democratic party, and they will abuse whatever power they have, from Fani Willis in Atlanta, Georgia. You got your crazy New York Attorney General, Letitia James, who is just as crazy and abusing power. And it turns out they all abuse money, too. Have you noticed Letitia James is now, she's got money abuses, Fani Willis, money abuses, and, hiring her boyfriend and paying him much more than everybody else and going on expensive vacations with him, Napa Valley and sea cruises. And these are corrupt people. These people are not liberals. They are the left. The left is devious, sinister, and corrupt. And they're anything but liberal. They are not liberal. That's very important stuff. Very important stuff. And a big, it's President Trump on truth. A big win for America. Absolutely true for the rule of law. Absolutely true for the Constitution. Absolutely true. Their tortured misinterpretation of the Constitution was deliberate. It was willful. It was fundamentally corrupt, because so many of them on the left are fundamentally corrupt. These people are not liberals. They're the opposite of liberals. I'm telling you right now. USA Today. Supreme Court keeps Trump on Colorado's presidential ballot. They were really hoping it would go against Trump. But now we've got to wonder whether the violent criminal mobs of Democrats that loot and burn, rob and plunder are going to be out in the streets today, because, it's kind of their normal thing. The unanimous decision. The court reversed the Colorado Supreme Court's December decision that Trump is disqualified from running for president by constitutional amendment enacted after the Civil War. That was to keep Democrat traitors from running for, and all the Confederates were Democrats, just by the way. Minor detail in the scheme of things. Right? I am telling you. Let me tell you. All right, we don't have a lot of time, but let's take a phone call, because this is obviously a giant Supreme Court ruling. The Democrats are looking to undermine all things American, from gender to education to the Constitution to stealing elections like leftists do in third world B polls like Russia and Senegal and Venezuela. The left is here. All right, let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Sid, calling from Los Angeles, California. Sid, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Sid. Very well, very well.
I want to run an idea about something. I think that all this commotion about going after people who participate on January 6th is a reaction by the Democrats. They couldn't believe that conservatives could put together 1 million people to protest. They saw this, and they don't want that ever to happen again. So they're going after all these people who participated in January 6th as a way of preventing any further action by conservatives, by dismantling their organization. They couldn't believe that, the Democrats are the people who could put together protest rallies. Republicans can't. But here's one occasion they put like 1 million people together. They couldn't believe that happened.
And you're absolutely right. It scared them to death. And, one riot in 300 years, Democrats had 300 riots that year because St. George Floyd, who died of a heart failure while being arrested yet again for yet another felony, while fentanyl and methamphetamine were coursing through his junky criminal bloodstream. And you're right. And Merrick Garland was bragging about it again over the weekend, about how many people they've arrested in Alaska for walking across the Capitol lawn. But still, nobody served a jail term for a 3-day siege of the White House with 180 police injured, the church of the president set on fire, the president and the first family evacuated to the nuclear bunker by the Secret Service. Not one jail term, not a single jail term for any of that. We're living in a very corrupt country, Sid. I'm sorry to report. Very corrupt. But there's there's a lot. I got to tell you, it's a good thing that it's an election year. But the left has never had one of the major political parties in the United States before. Now they have the Democrat Party. And the Democratic Socialists of America who love Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, a ricochet rabbit. They're in charge of, well, the federal government and the Senate. And all of their corrupt prosecutors. And they're corrupt in every imaginable way. Abusing their power to target their political enemies, just like in third world countries. We call them the Democratic Party, even though they aren't. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Now, Josh Gerstein at Politico actually reported it correctly on his X account. Flash, in all caps, colon. They love their colons. SCOTUS rules unanimously. See, that's the lead. But every fake news outlet, NBC News, USA Today, the New York Times, Josh Gerstein got it right. SCOTUS, your abbreviation for the Supreme Court of the United States, rules unanimously states lack the power to remove federal candidates from ballot under 14th Amendment insurrection clause. Good job, Josh Gerstein, because it was, I'm not a lawyer, but I knew that I certainly expected that President Trump was going to win this because the left-wing radicals are just abusing their power again, which they're so fond of doing. They believe that's what it's for. Power comes from the barrel of a gun, as the Democrats and Chairman Mao like to say. And they have it to abuse it for political purposes. But the correct lead sentence is Supreme Court rules unanimously. States lack the power to remove federal candidates from ballot under 14th Amendment. That's the actual lead sentence. If any of these people were journalists, but overwhelmingly, of course, these people are not journalists. They're just Democrat hacks. Lawrence Hurley at NBC Fake News typed this awful story, this awful lead, missing the point. He should be kicked out of journalism if they had any standards. Fortunately for Lawrence Hurley, they don't have any standards, so he's fine. So Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who doesn't know what a woman is, knows that this was illegal, but Democrats are going to still, they're going to try to get you any way they can. They're not on our side. They're fanatical. They don't care about the rule of law. They care about power. They care about winning. They care about destroying. That's who they are. Now, when the entire court rules against the Democrat lynch mob in Colorado and in Illinois and in Maine, trying to, I understand they hate Trump. I get that. You've made that abundantly clear. You're filled with hatred for, Americans and white people and straight people and normal people. It's the war on normal. I was wearing my Remember Normal t-shirt yesterday, hiking around the city of Washington, as a matter of fact. But really, when the entire court, because there was a concern that if it had been a 6-3 ruling and the three lefties had ruled voted. You know, Democrats think this is like voting for your high school prom king and queen. You just vote whatever way your party wants you to vote. But that's not the way it's supposed to go. And in this case, I've got to say, you've got Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, and you've got the greatest justice ever, Clarence Thomas, who the racist Democrats despise, Justice Samuel Alito. You've got Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and those are, of course, the great justices because they were nominated to the court by Republican presidents. And then the radical left put Ketanji Brown Jackson, I don't know what a woman is, on the Supreme Court. She's not a biologist. And Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, a.k.a. Jake LaMotta. And when the case is so obvious that even Sotomayor and Kagan and I don't know what a woman is, Ketanji Brown Jackson, they say, oh no, Colorado can't just declare President Trump to be guilty of insurrection and therefore excluded from the political ballot because he's never been charged with insurrection. He's never been tried for insurrection. He has never been convicted on a charge of insurrection or insurrectionism, and therefore he is not guilty in the United States of America of committing insurrection. But the Colorado Supreme Court, all Democrats, they said, well, we don't care what the law is. We don't care what our role is as Supreme Court justices for the state of Colorado. We're just going to do what the Democrat Party wants us to do because we're not really legitimate legal scholars. We're just political activists who got the job because probably sleeping with somebody. Very often the case with Democrats. But a 9-0 sweep is very good with no dissents, and that's how that goes. Now, there is a left-wing radical by the name of Neil Katyal, K-A-T-Y-A-L, Neil Katyal, and his parents from India. He came to the United States. He went to law school, and then he became a lawyer, and then he's an Obama administration guy, and the Democrats love him. He's a left-winger. And he goes on MSDNC to say crazy left-wing things because that's what these guys do. Neil Kumar Katyal, American lawyer and academic, naturally, teaching at the Georgetown University Law Center, the next generation of left-wing radicals who will ignore the law. And listen to his response after the verdict came down just minutes ago on MSDNC. He's like, well, we can still charge him with other things. We can still find some way to lynch him. We can, thanks for bringing your cultural norms to American jurisprudence. Here's Neil Katyal moments ago on MSDNC.
I mean, one of the most important moments in our history after the Civil War, our nation came together and said, look, insurrectionists should not be on the ballot. The court today is not saying that Donald Trump is free of the charges of being an insurrectionist. And I think we should all remember what those words of the 14th Amendment are. It may be that Congress hasn't implemented legislation to enforce it, but you and I enforce the 14th Amendment too by what we do at the ballot box.
Yeah, that's not really what the 14th Amendment is about, but that's okay. And at the end of the Civil War, which the Democrat Party perpetrated with their Democrat president, Jefferson Davis of the Confederate States of America, waging the Civil War. And but he's not free of the charge of insurrection. And the court didn't rule on that. Well, that's because he hasn't been charged with insurrection, because they'd look like idiots if they tried to do that. Any idiot, Democrat, racist, anti-American mental case, and they've got a great many of them. But Neil Katyal, you're watching MSDNC. Yeah, but they didn't. What about insurrection? Well, he's been charged in New York, in Washington, in Georgia, and not with insurrection. And they charge him with, 90-something counts of various things, but none of them insurrection. But here comes Neil Katyal with, that they haven't exonerated him of something that he actually hasn't been charged with. And this guy is teaching law at the Georgetown University Law School. His sister is teaching law at Berkeley, naturally. The Democrat Party is here to destroy the world. They really are. And a Solicitor General for Barack Obama, naturally.
While the Supreme Court decision today was expected on the idea that Congress hasn't passed implementing legislation, it does leave the door open for a trial against Donald Trump, for the evidence to be produced against Donald Trump, and for the American people to still say, you are an insurrectionist for what you did, and we do not think you belong on the ballot. We don't think we're going to vote against you come November, should you be on the ballot.
What a maroon, honestly. What an idiot, I got to tell you. He went to high school, Loyola Academy in in Wilmette, Illinois, where one of my brothers went to school. And my high school was several blocks away from Loyola Academy in Wilmette, Illinois, when I was a kid. Amazing. That's your Democrat Party. They're really something. Yeah, well, we can still find it. This is not liberalism. This is not the Democrat Party in the United States. This is the left that you might find in any hellhole country in Africa where slavery is still fashionable. And the Democrat Party is, of course, the party of slavery. They want a ceasefire against Hamas, but not a ceasefire in Sudan to stop the slave trade there. I think they're fine with slavery still to this day. They don't want a ceasefire in Ukraine with Russia, even though about 500,000 people have been killed there, and about 30,000 in the Gaza. They don't care about human life. They care about power. It's a disgraceful former American party. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Ari, calling from North Carolina. Ari, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Ari.
I was wondering, if you're trying to deprive a citizen of his rights as a citizen to run for public office, isn't that a crime? Are we looking at a conspiracy to deprive a citizen of his God-given rights as an American citizen to run for public office? It seems like that is a crime.
Well, they don't believe in God-given rights, do they?
Right.
They believe it.
Chris.
Yeah, that is one of the problems. They believe that the state grants you your rights, and the state can take your rights away. And when they have secured the power of the state, they believe that they are in a position to take your rights away, and they do it all over the place. January 6th and the ongoing manhunt for January 6th participants, while giving a free pass to all the rioters and looters and they killed at least 24 people in their George Floyd riots and injured literally thousands of police officers, attacking courthouses and police stations. And if anybody can show me, and the 3-day riot at the White House, I was down there for part of it with my best girl, and torching the Church of the Presidents, nobody being hunted down for that. Nobody being arrested for that. Where's the arrest in the pipe bomb case at the DNC headquarters and the RNC headquarters on January 6th, January 5th? Where's all that? Well, listen, Ari, it sounds like you know exactly what's going on here, and they don't care about the rule of law, do they?
No, they don't. If they did, they would never have arbitrarily changed voting eligibility laws in states without the proper agreement of the legislatures. They did it as dictators. They changed election laws. That itself is a crime.
Well, the law is applied selectively in the United States these days, isn't it, Ari?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We're living in a very corrupt time. We are right now, and I take no joy in saying this, we're living in a very corrupt country. corruption is now the norm in this country. Every day there's another example of judicial corruption, of law enforcement, federal law enforcement corruption, and it's all coming from the Democrats. There are no Republicans, and then they're like, oh, Trump's going to come in and he's going to seek revenge. Well, I've got to say it might be welcome if the tables were turned on the Democrats and they got a little taste of what they're meting out in the United States of America. I don't expect we're going to see anything of the kind, but I think the FBI should probably be dissolved. I think John Brennan, former CIA director and Communist Party voter, should probably have charges pressed against him because of the crimes that he committed, tampering in our presidential election in 2020, misleading the American people, lying to the American people, deceiving an information operation that our own intelligence community ran against the American people, tampering in our election. Barack Obama, of course, used the IRS against his political enemies. The Hillary Clinton campaign and the FBI, again, using that fake dossier to corrupt the presidential election. We've and now we act like it's normal because we have a corrupt news media that is in the back pocket, or is it the front pocket, of the Democrat Party doing their work. And it's a terrible time in the United States of America, I've got to say, Ari.
Well, people will tolerate this abuse only so long. You always hear the end is near, but when you look ahead and you can actually see the edge, people will push back. And I think people are beginning to wake up, and they can see that they're hurting us to a cliff.
Yeah, they are.
Push back.
And I got to say, I hope that people that call themselves Democrats are opening their eyes to the fact that their party is no longer a Democratic party. Their party is no longer on the side of the United States of America. Their party is a violent, really criminal party every time you look up. Not just the George Floyd riots. They love George Floyd, don't they? But on and on. There's a Jewish dentist that was murdered by a man named Mohammed in California the other day, and there will be no riots for him. There was a 22-year-old nursing student named Laken Riley that was murdered by an illegal alien waved into the country by the Democrat Party and their open borders policies, and there will be no riots for Laken Riley. And I got to, I've talked about this before, but the reason January 6th became a dust-up, not nearly as violent as at least 150 Democrat riots in the preceding year, but the reason people got a little rowdy, it was mostly peaceful, however, on January 6th, is because everyone was frustrated looking around at all the violence and the news media telling us it's mostly peaceful, while they're sacking and plundering city after city after city in the name of a career criminal junkie, And if Laken Riley maybe were a career criminal drug addict that had been assaulting the police, or, what's her name, that her boyfriend shot at the police, actually shot a police officer when they came through the door, serving a warrant for drugs, and she gets shot to death by the police in a confusing moment that was created because her boyfriend's shooting at the police. And Breonna Taylor is a hero of the left because her boyfriends are gun-toting drug dealers who shoot cops. And so Breonna Taylor is a hero, and George Floyd's a hero. But Laken Riley, they couldn't care less about. By the way, Laken Riley's family, the funeral was on Friday. They excluded the press from the church during the services. No Al Sharpton speech. They're a very wise and normal family, and they said, no, we're not going to have TV cameras in here. You idiots will turn it into a circus, and we're mourning our daughter who was murdered by an illegal alien that Joe Biden and the Democrats invited into the country. But Laken Riley and now a Jewish dentist in California, they won't be household names. Like George Floyd, St. George Floyd. Oh, we all watched it for 9 minutes. Yeah, he died of heart failure because of the drugs in his system. And if he hadn't been resisting arrest violently, then everything would have been fine. He would have been taken away for passing a counterfeit bill to a migrant family, by the way, ripping them off again. So much fentanyl coursing through his bloodstream That one coroner said if we had found him dead at home, we would have assumed that he died of a fentanyl overdose. The cause of death had nothing to do with asphyxiation or a neck injury. It was cardiac failure. But the Democrats burned our country down from coast to coast for months. And then there's one little dust up on Capitol Hill. And, don't assault police officers. You're held accountable for assaulting police officers. Absolutely. But walking through the Capitol after the Capitol Police wave you through the door that they're holding open doesn't look like a crime to me. We have a corrupt federal justice system. But at least every liberal idiot on the court did the sensible thing today. Surprise, surprise. Now, the Democrats are soiling themselves again, as they so often do. And they're very angry. They want to pack the Supreme Court. We started the big radio broadcast today with Chuck Schumer threatening the lives of Supreme Court justices in front of the Supreme Court, pounding his lizard-like fist with a small crowd of cheering left-wing mental cases cheering behind him. Yeah! You'll reap the whirlwind, Kavanaugh. And then an armed gunman showed up outside of his house. And, the Democrat Party is a menace to civil governance. Just by the way, during the arguments at the Supreme Court, even Elena Kagan was asking questions that made it sound like she was going to vote in favor of Trump or, rule her verdict would be in favor of Trump. Elena Kagan during the lawyers came before the Supreme Court and argued. And during arguments, Elena Kagan said, she asked a question, why should a single state have the ability to make this determination, not only for their own citizens, but for the rest of the nation? Even Elena Kagan, who I've seen out walking around in D.C. a couple of times by herself, walking around with a big smile on her face, waddling a little. And, she looks perfectly normal if she weren't a left-wing radical on the U.S. Supreme Court. But this is what it's going to become about now. Oh, no, and it really is best that it's a 9-0 ruling, that it's a unanimous ruling. Because it'll take a lot of the wind out of the sails of the radical left who would point to the court and Republican justices and start threatening their lives again.